let's turn that down a bit. Maybe a little bit more. I mean, dang, that's a bright light. Alright, as I promised in my last video, we're here to review the Nanlite FS300. It's currently the powerhouse of their budget line. Now, Nanlite has really burst onto the lighting scene in the last few years, working hard to compete with companies like Aputure, who have also recently established themselves in the indie film world. And Nanlite has been making some great and powerful products. But whenever you branch out into the budget realm to reach more customers, you run the risk of making serious compromises that can damage your reputation and produce instruments that are, well, kinda unusable. So I had my concerns when I bought the $379 FS300. Before I jump into my review, I know that others have talked about the differences between the FS300 and Nanlite's flagship Forza 300, but I think it's important to highlight a few things when evaluating the FS at its price point. On paper, and looking just at the lumen count, the Forza 300 is 16% brighter than its cheaper cousin, which in real life doesn't amount to a visible difference. There's less than 1/3 of a stop of light, so the output is essentially equal. The Forza also comes with a case and has a separate power bank and controller unit that gets these elements off the light. It can be powered via V-mount batteries as well. And the last big difference is that it can be controlled via DMX if you're using that system. What these lights have in common is very similar build and color quality. So let's start first with the one thing that you care most about, and then the one thing that you worry most about, and then I'll cover its one big advantage over the pricier lights. Power and color. When it comes to color rendition, Nanlite didn't cut any corners. The Forza and other 300 fixtures use a COB or single LED in their lights, whereas the FS uses a CSP chip, which is designed with multiple smaller chips. This accounts for the slight variation in color between the two lights. It's not the same chip. But neither is actually better than the other. Both are considered outstanding in the industry. Power, or more accurately light output, is always a little trickier to evaluate without doing the tests yourself. Power draw, or that 300 numeration in the name, can be wildly different than power output. Manufacturers often test in different ways at different distances, and something as simple as swapping out a reflector can nudge the output in one direction or another. If we want to judge by the manufacturer's specs and, well, a little of our own math, the FS is just 100 lumens dimmer at 3 meters than the Aputure 300D Mark II, or less than 1/3 of 1% dimmer. Regardless of how precise that is, it's safe to say that it produces a heck of a lot of light, and that it competes well with other 300 series lights. Power is not an issue. So let's talk about the one major complaint you hear about this light: noise. Being a monoblock, or all-in-one, it generates all of its heat, has all of its burnable components, and all of its necessary cooling systems encased together. Now, when I first turned on this light, my reaction was, whoa, that's loud. That's too loud. And that might be your first reaction too. But then I put it in context. It's loud, but only when you're close to it. It produces roughly 2,000 watts of light. So what would we use it for? Well, you can shoot it through a window to replicate sunlight, or you can light up your background, or light your B-roll, or you can use it as your key light for a talking subject. So there are a bunch of uses where sound really doesn't matter at all. How much noise then does it introduce when it does matter? I tested the noise level. My living room isn't silent, it's not treated, but we live in a quiet neighborhood without through traffic, so it's surprisingly quiet, 20 dB to be exact. Measured at 24 inches from the light, the closest it could be to a mic, the noise floor in my room rises to 26 dB with the FS300. Technically, it's twice as loud to the human ears as the room. In real-world terms, the room has gone from an imperceptible hum to a perceptible hum to the human ear, but the mic is different. I actually used the FS300 at a distance of 24 inches to the mic in my last video, and that was a mic review where the audio was raw and unprocessed, and I encourage viewers to listen with headphones to hear every nuance. Though some reviewers have disputed this claim. I can't speak to the noise floor because all of my recording environments are pretty noisy, and that's true when I'm in the field too, so the exact number isn't important to me, just so long as it's quiet. And this one, it is. It's a great mic, by the way. If you listen to the video, you can hear the slightest little bit of hum in the background, but only if you're listening for hum. It's invisible if you're listening to the words that I'm saying or even to the mic quality. In practice, the FS300 didn't need noise reduction, room tone, ambience, or music to hide its noise. The reason it's not audible is that I use the classic positioning of mic and light, with the FS300 at about 45 degrees from my face, which puts it 135 degrees behind the mic head. This is where shotgun and cardioid mics have the strongest rejection. But what if the omnidirectional lav is my weapon of choice? Well, with a lav, you're not going to have the light 24 inches away from the speaker. It would be, in the shot. Perceived sound and sound pressure are complicated subjects, but essentially, when you double the distance, the level drops by 6 dB, which again is halving the audible level for the human ear. If your light is 6 feet from your lav mic, it's going to be 1/3 of the noise level that it was by the boom mic, or about as audible as it was in my mic video, ever so slightly above room tone. Now the caveat to my mic video example is that I used one of my favorite light modifiers, which is an umbrella softbox with a grid. This puts the light inside the modifier, and the noise probably wasn't 26 dB at that point. I should also point out that inside the softbox, the light was at 18%. Full power might cause overheating in an enclosed space, so no, don't try that at home. The fan is always on at full speed with this light, which means that there's no quiet setting, but also that it won't kick in the middle of a take and change your background. So how can I sum up this problem? Well, noise is the Achilles heel of the FS300. It's very audible, or should I say noticeable. If I was a gaffer on a production, I wouldn't place this instrument as a key light because the sound mixer would poison me at the food truck, even if the sound editor back in post couldn't hear it in the mix. The perception of fan noise is a bigger problem than the actual noise. Now, I don't want to minimize it, but in the vast majority of situations, noise is not going to be an issue with this light. It would be great to have a light that is perfect in every situation, but if you need an every situation light, you should be prepared to pay a little bit more. And we should remember that the noise here is also a trade-off for a big advantage that this light has over its pricier competitors. It's a monoblock. You connect one cord and it's ready to go. There is so much less setup time compared to the unpacking, unwinding of cords, and the connecting that goes into other 300 series lights. There's less to pack, less to carry, it's easier to move on set without a pack, and frankly, there's less to damage. People would say that the biggest disadvantage of the light is the lack of V-mount battery capacity. For some, this might be an inconvenience, but I don't think that most users will notice it. Keep in mind that in all of the use scenarios I mentioned before, all of them are within an extension cord of a power outlet. Now, if you already own a powerful set of V-mount batteries, then you might find use for them in a 300 series light. But even then, 300 watts will burn through 2 large capacity V-mounts in about 70 minutes at full power, which means you'll need at least 2 pairs of batteries for even small projects like a corporate interview. That's 4 batteries that you don't need somewhere else on another piece of equipment just to power this light. Now, if you don't own a set of V-mounts already, you're probably not going to drop $500 on a pair or $1,000 for 4 just for this $379 light. And there are other portable power solutions that are cheaper and more flexible than V-mounts. Now for a few of the basics that should probably be in every review. The light doesn't really become hot to the touch, and I've had no problems with overheating. I'll update the description if I ever have an incident. The design is simple. The knob's a little plasticky, but with just 2, it's hard to get worked up about that. Nowadays, the FS300 usually comes with a Nanlite controller, so you can control the light from a distance as well. While a remote control is a bit of a nuisance on location, I definitely prefer it to powering up an app, but this remote control is not very well designed. The text color and the background color are too close together, and the order of the knobs is not to my liking. It comes with the 11 programmed lighting effects, if you can stomach that sort of thing. You can control the intensity of the effects with the power knob. Are they any good? Well, except for the fire and TV, they never really are, no matter how much you pay for a light. There's a USB port, so Nanlite has left open the possibility of a firmware upgrade in the future. We'll see what that produces. With 29 years in the lighting business, Nanlite has worked out a lot of the kinks that newer companies struggle with when bringing a light to market. The build quality is solid enough for professional use. Even the reflector feels high quality. The look is streamlined and a little trendy with faux carbon fiber panels. This unit is way too heavy to have any real carbon fiber. I appreciate that they've placed the umbrella holder inside the yoke, an innovative and intelligent location. And it has a spring-loaded knob that won't come off by accident. And as a monoblock, it is really convenient. The FS300 is by far the quickest and easiest bright light in my arsenal. I've only had it for a few weeks, but I think that this may be the light I grab first for a project. But the light clearly isn't perfect. It has significant shortcomings. It's also one shortcoming. There are no other real complaints here, and that makes it a tiny bit easier to evaluate for your own use. Do you need a super quiet light for the work that you do? And would you use it near enough to a mic to be a problem? Does this need to be your everything light, or can it be your most of the time light? Well, maybe it's not such an easy question to answer. The ball's in your court.